By the time the fourth review was announced, the decision had already been absorbed. It was framed as an internal audit, routine, procedural, preventive. The Oversight Integrity Subcommittee scheduled a closed session to evaluate consulting alignment standards. No press briefing, no public transcript, no live stream. The language suggested transparency. The structure suggested containment. The system was not reacting. It was recalibrating. 3 names were already on my wall. Harrow, Vale, Rear. 3. Exposure vectors. 3 ESCALATIONS. Now the response was institutional. Not denial. Adjustment. I requested access to the subcommittee agenda. The file was accessible for exactly 6 hours. Then it was replaced with a revised version. The revised version removed a single line. Tiered mitigation oversight review. Tiered. The word had reached committee language. That was expansion. A former legislative aide contacted me that evening. They're restructuring the vocabulary, he said, to dissolve traceable patterns. Advisory contracts were being reclassified under broader headings. Continuity services would become strategic governance support. Exposure mitigation would become executive performance advisory. Tier language would disappear. Structure would remain. That was institutional adaptation. The next morning, I attempted to access the risk escalation matrix through a secondary portal. Access denied. The file had been relocated, not deleted. Relocated. Digital relocation preserves existence while eliminating traceability. That was procedural resistance. I began comparing archived PDF metadata from prior contract disclosures across multiple agencies. A common template signature appeared. As framework delta. Private. Architecture embedded within public systems. That was insulation. A Treasury analyst sent a final encrypted message. They've moved to silent tiers. No explicit classification, just behavioral triggers, based on cumulative instability projection. Projection implies modeling. Modeling implies forecasting. Forecasting implies anticipation of narrative collapse. If instability could be projected, it could be preempted. That was escalation without terminology. I requested comment from Argent regarding advisory reclassifications, consulting frameworks. Evolve in response to institutional needs, they replied. Evolve. Evolution implies survival. Survival implies threat. Asked whether their advisory structures incorporated predictive modeling. Our role remains strictly advisory. The phrase repeated across multiple responses. Repetition suggests coordination. 2 days later, a senior committee counsel resigned. Official statement. Transition to private sector. No scandal. No illness. Just departure. Her office had previously questioned advisory fee expansions. The resignation occurred 48 hours after the revised agenda. Tier 2. Administrative exit. The system corrected internally. Public references to Argent decreased. Subcontracting entities appeared in procurement filings. New names. Identical addresses. Shared compliance officers. Compartmentalization evolved into fragmentation. Fragmentation multiplies plausible deniability. Late one evening, My encrypted drive triggered a remote access alert. Attempt blocked. Coincidence is possible. Probability accumulates. I disconnected from the network, moved working files offline, printed the risk escalation matrix. Paper leaves fewer digital footprints. The Oversight Subcommittee released a summary memo. Findings: no procedural irregularities identified. Recommendation: advisory modernization. Modernization erases history. The memo included a footnote. Predictive continuity modeling enhances institutional resilience. New phrase. Old function. Tier logic without the word tier. Institutional camouflage. I mapped the chronology again. Exposure detected. Advisory engaged. Insurance rider adjusted. Model updated. Containment applied. Narrative released. Oversight recalibrated. Vocabulary restructured. Pattern absorbed. The structure was no longer reactive. It was anticipatory. A former compliance officer agreed to speak. They're not escalating anymore, he said. They're smoothing. Smoothing instability curves. Curves suggest data modeling. Modeling suggests simulations. Simulations require thresholds. Thresholds remain, even if renamed. They've reduced terminal exposure events, he added. Tier 3 and terminal are statistically inefficient. Human outcomes measured in efficiency ratios. Institutional math refined. The following week, markets experienced a brief fluctuation tied to a regulatory memo leak. Within 24 hours, the leak was retracted. The official responsible entered medical leave. Tier 1, containment without removal. Media narratives shifted before official statements were released. Anonymous briefings pre-framed developments. Stability preserved. Continuity maintained. Contained exposure. Public vocabulary mirrored advisory language. Narrative shaping reduced the need for escalation. If perception is managed early. Thresholds may never be crossed. Another encrypted message arrived. You see it now. They've eliminated the visible tiers. Only invisible thresholds remained. Post-Greer. No terminal events occurred. Only administrative exits and medical leaves. Optimization replaced escalation. I stood in front of the wall. 4 clusters. Harrow. Vale. Greer. Committee council. Different outcomes. One structure. Exposure modeling. Continuity. Prioritization. Predictive smoothing. The quiet option had matured. From reaction to anticipation. From escalation to calibration. From visible tiers to invisible thresholds. I closed the folder labeled Tier Logic. Opened a new one. Title. Predictive. Architecture. This was no longer about outcomes after exposure. It was about shaping conditions. Before exposure metastasized. Contracts embedded in policy. Language embedded in narrative. Modeling embedded in governance. No villain. No manifesto. Just systemic. Refinement. The fourth review was not oversight. It was adaptation. And adaptation means the system is learning faster than the investigation.